Welcome back. Another episode of Cast of Kings. It's
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
It's been a long time.
You got your three hosts, Bruce K, DJ Smooth,
Reggie Miller.
K-Love.
Got a lot to talk about. We got a long list. We got the NBA. We got Major League Baseball. Always the White House. But let's kick it off with the NFL. There's a lot going on right now.
So much going on, man. Where do we start?
We might be able to do the whole show in the NFL.
No
By
doubt.
itself.
No doubt. No
Twists
doubt.
and turns, things are going on. You know, it's almost like a soap opera. It's like
The players kneeling has taken on a whole new context, really. Now it's become like, seems like President Trump's personal mission.
I know. He got involved, and now the whole purpose of Colin Kaepernick, who started it, has been completely hijacked by the president and really the conservative movement in general. It was never about the flag. It was never a protest against the military. And I almost feel like, the owners are treating their players like personal property. I hate to say slaves, but that's what it is, right?
Well, I see it different. I see, to be honest, he just kicked it off. And some people, you know what I say? I say sometimes, is this the tipping point? Is this not the tipping point? As far as when he interjected himself. But, I look at it as, they don't want to acknowledge the actual Collins protest, the original protest. So it's almost like we don't want to talk about that. Only thing that we want to talk about right now is you guys not kneeling in the game. It's affecting our money. It's affecting, how the perception of our fans, not including you, our fans, so that's where it's starting to take all these different twists and turns that, I would like for the people that are involved to swing it back around. So it's let's not have this conversation. Let's not have this conversation unless we're talking about that in the same sentence.
It's a couple of things for me. One thing I haven't heard anyone say this, and maybe it's forgotten. Initially, when Colin Kaepernick started this, he sat, right? He sat. He didn't kneel. He sat.
Yep.
After meeting with a Green Beret, a former Green Beret.
Right.
It was Nate.
Right.
Yeah.
Who met with him. After that conversation, he decided to kneel to, in fact, show respect to the flag.
Right.
So he was still wanted to get his point across, but kneeling was the compromise to show respect. So I guess what I'm saying, how now are we taking that to mean disrespect when it came from someone who obviously this stuff means a lot to, and that Green Beret thought it would be best for Colin to kneel.
Last night, or maybe, no, it was last night, Eminem released his 5-minute freestyle about how he felt about Trump. And one of the things he mentioned in that freestyle, which is so poetically true, we're talking about the kneeling, disrespect to the flag. He disrespected a POW. They said that, I like my heroes not to be captured.
Right.
I like
he
winners.
Right. He disrespected a family that lost a loved one in a war. And we're talking about somebody like Colin and these other players kneeling as a form of silent protest. And he is straight attacking Gold Star families and McCain, who's I don't know.
Yeah,
I like to think I'm a pretty tough guy, but
5 years of his life.
not just 5 years. He could have got out sooner because of his family's legacy, but chose to stay there. This guy is. Here's the thing. I haven't been aligned with all of McCain's views, but I have a total respect for this man. As a man, total respect.
Absolutely.
And for this guy to sit there and say that, I like my soldiers, not to be captured. A person who's never served in the army, never served any type of military post at all. To sit there and say now, when we're talking about sports, to interject himself in there and be like, these guys are disrespecting the flag. Like, he's such a hypocrite. That's the thing is, and that's where, like, I want everyone that's, like, involved in this to kind of swing it back to, let's get back on topic. And the topic is Colin was doing his silent protest, or his, him kneeling, which is, his silent protest, based on just in, like, the police brutality that's going on
and how
now.
people were being treated, and in addition to how returning veterans were being treated who were black, and now it's been completely hijacked.
Yeah, the message is another thing that's also interesting. How many NFL players decided to get involved in this movement, if you will, but only after the president made comments about them, about the NFL players, calling them SOBs.
Right.
So I think that's also very interesting to look at why before that happened, so many of these players weren't involved, but after that. So again, to your point, I think it all circles back. This message is very much lost, because I'm not even confident all the NFL players who decided to get involved post-Trump's comment about the NFL specifically would have gotten involved without that, which I also think it, says a lot as
Right.
well.
And if you remember, Shannon Sharp had a good piece where he wasn't really buying all of this because, even for the NFL owners, all of a sudden they're concerned. All these owners who contributed millions of dollars to Trump's campaign, now you're concerned because now he's starting to mess with your revenue and your money.
Right.
Before that, all the things that he did, that was fine. When he talked about molesting women, nothing. But now, when he calls, your players who protest sons of bitches, now you feel like, now we need to say something, right?
Yeah, but even that only lasted a couple of weeks.
Right.
So the same owner, Jerry Jones, who walked out, linked arms with his entire team, walked out to midfield, took a knee, and then stood up. And back 2 weeks later, now his mandated that
That everybody needs
any
to.
player on his team.
Well, Jerry Jones, but Jerry Jones is doing. He's tap dancing. He's doing the ultimate like tap dance. And also because Trump has interjected himself so much into it that like he's calling Jerry Jones. So that's another level of pressure, and he has the quote unquote America's team.
Right.
So I own quote unquote America's team. I've taken a $200 million investment and turned it into a $4 billion investment. He cares about his money, and at the end of the day, I'm getting calls from the president. It's gone to this level. Calls from the president. No one gives a shit about what's going on in Puerto Rico. I got calls from the president about what am I going to do about the players. So I feel like Jerry Jones is kind of like caught in a hard place. And trust me, I'm not defending this dude by any means. I'm just saying that he probably would have took a different stance if all that pressure wasn't coming down on him.
I agree with everything you said, but the fact is now he publicly stated this.
Oh,
So
no.
now it's like, what's going to happen?
Right. No, he's going to screw himself up.
What's he do if Ezekiel Elliott and Des Bryant and all these guys decide to kneel and right before the game? You
That's
say
what
you
I'm
can't
getting
play.
at.
Well, Shannon Sharp has already called a lot of those players out, and
Sellouts.
well, here's the thing too, and the Cowboys have a lot. They got a lot of like their team. They don't have a strong team, so they don't have a lot of standout players. They only have a couple of them. Ezekiel Elliott doesn't count, kind of, because he is in so much hot water that I'm sure he's just trying to like keep his nose clean. So he doesn't have a suit. So, but regardless of how strong the team is, and between the rookies and players of the night, if they all took the knee, you can't do anything about that. And that's what Shannon Sharp is trying to say. Is like, look, if all you guys took the knee, Jerry Jones, y'all called his bluff. He's not gonna forfeit the game on and then but right now he's getting all this pressure from Trump. But the problem is that pressure from Trump and Jerry actually giving validity to the whole thing is putting, I don't know, I'm looking at the players like, you guys better not. You better take that knee.
And now, as of yesterday, it's taken even more another step because now Goodell's involved, right?
Right.
Goodell now has sent a memo out to every team, kind of setting the stage
That
in
you
some
should
owner
stand.
meetings that are going to be happening next week. Like they're going to bring this up at these owner meetings next week to possibly now maybe try and make it in the bylaws.
No, but here's the thing about that. So, all right, we have this quote-unquote policy, and that they're talking about, and it's the owners. And let's keep it 100. Like Goodell meeting with the owners to come up with some policy where there's no representation from like the union, which is the union is right now, players union is talking about suing the NFL.
Yep.
Based on freedom of speech.
Yep.
It
Have a great case.
like,
too,
but
by the way.
but also it's very. Look at history. When they freed the slaves, think about it. They put all these laws in place that made sure the slaves weren't quite free.
Right.
So it's like there was no representation on it. It was like, okay, we freed you guys, but you know what? We got a lot of like laws under.
a lot of barriers.
Right. So and I feel like this is kind of the same thing. Let all the owners meet, huddle up. It's not like they said, hey, you know what? Let's try
do
to
it
squash this
collectively.
together, right?
Right.
Players, we're gonna invite people from the players union.
Right.
We're gonna invite 4 or 5 top,
Representatives from
top
each team or
NFL people,
something.
maybe
Right.
past and former. Let's get together and come up with something that is inclusive of everybody. That's not happening right now. You have a bunch of owners
Right.
with Goodell, and
All
honestly,
white men.
and Goodell just
Billionaires.
and
Yes.
hold up, and Goodell just redid his contract.
Yeah.
They should have put a stipulation because all this was going on while he was renegotiating his contract. I would have put a stipulation if I was on the board of any of these guys. You know what, Goodell? Right now, there's a shitstorm happening that you could have curbed. So as the leader of the NFL, because that's what he is, if this thing takes a left or a right or whatever, we should be able to void your contract. Because he's renegotiating a new contract where,
Yeah.
like, you know, any company or CEO, anything starts to get out of hand, you can always go back to the
CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a PR nightmare on his hand that's been completely mishandled. He could have got ahead of it
Back at
back
Colin
when
Colin.
Colin started kneeling, right? And in the midst of all of this, Colin still doesn't have a job, which is crazy. Because if you look at the NFL and all the 32 teams that could use a quarterback or have quarterbacks who are arguably not as good as him, he's still sitting at home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Which is also now being swept under the rug.
Right.
And is
Yeah,
no longer
nobody's talking about
in
that.
the conversation.
But the thing about it is, like, Roger holds a position to where, like, everything, like, that's leadership.
Right.
So if this thing spins out of control under your watch, you're to blame. There's nothing else to say about it. Like,
That's how it
you
works,
could have controlled it.
especially in
You
the
could have
billion-dollar
like,
industry.
Where he's
Hundreds
making
of
$50
billions.
million
and
a year,
and
right?
especially when everything, and it, you know, this goes beyond the NFL. You know, you talk about corporate America. Everyone's trying to like be more inclusive, because because America is browning more and more every day. So everyone's trying to be inclusive. So with that being said, the NFL is no different. And how CEOs and those C-suites deal with adversity, whether or not it's ageism, sexism, religion, women in the workplace, racism, if you're the leader of a company, everything, that
Falls back on you.
falls back on you.
Right.
And I'm like, Goodell could have handled this a long time ago. So while he was negotiating his contract, because this was going on while he was negotiating, I would have put a clause in there. If you don't get ahead of this and this thing spins out of control, we get your job.
Yeah, right.
And your contract is void.
Right.
Where the other twist and turns that we haven't even, mentioned, and we come out of advertising, so we understand this. I'm sure that the NFL has a lot of advertisers that's like,
You need to figure this out.
no, they're tearing up their head sales department like, look, y'all need to get this under control.
Well, that's
Right.
what's prompting
Because-
all this.
right, because
that
it-
has
because-
to be.
It-
That's what's prompting Goodell's memo, et cetera, et cetera.
And-
It's the advertising.
But even these guys taking a knee, no one cared before like the Army and all those guys started being big supporters of the NFL. That's the only reason why they even started playing the anthem and like in the first place.
Right, flying planes over.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's the armed forces and
military.
their involvement into the sport. But also you have all these other advertisers because we've been in this industry though for over 2 decades, and like I know they're squirming. Like they're like, look, we can't align with the NFL if you guys can't get this under control.
Yeah.
So I'm sure at a financial level, even beyond those guys losing like the viewership, which that's important to them.
Important.
But like advertisers start backing out, that's a whole nother level.
Right.
If advertisers are like, look, like a Pepsi, and think about this, most of these companies have these moral clauses. Does the NFL have a moral clause? If I'm Pepsi and I have a 10-year deal with the NFL that's worth $2 billion or whatever, if the way you guys are handling your organization starts to affect my brand, can I tap out of my $2 billion contract because you guys are starting to hurt my brand?
Right.
I don't know, but I would be interested to find out.
Yeah, I'm sure for TV viewing, if you're not meeting your impressions, you could definitely have to give them money back. If it's a sponsorship, I'm sure there's a clause in the contract that says if we're not getting the same amount of impressions, we got to adjust to what our fee is. So, yeah, definitely something that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But moving along to just actually what's happening on the field, and
on the field, actually.
on the field
For a change.
in New York. The Jets are rolling. Kenny's happy. I'm happy too because I like them both.
Hey man, I don't want to say I told everybody, but I think I.
But I told everybody
that we were not going to be a 0-1 win team. I had no designs of playoffs or anything like that. But all that talk about winless and that was absurd.
And no one probably thought the Giants would be 0-5 right now.
0-5.
No, I thought they'd be 1-4 maybe.
ODB is out for the season.
Man.
Yo, I couldn't even watch that injury.
Oh my! I thought it could be Korean. You know how when Joe Theismann broke his and you cringe and you grabbed your chair. I kind of was like, oh my God, is that is that a season or was that it?
Well, the way the player jumped up and started waving for the trainers to come over and the way that he reacted, I was like, this is bad.
And it still could be, man. You don't know how he's going to come back.
Right, until he starts to play on it.
Number one, and number two, obviously, the big elephant in the room and why he held out a training camp extension.
It's a big contract.
He's about to be up.
Right.
Next year is his last year of his rookie contract, and he was arguably in the discussion to be the highest paid player in the NFL, where he was looking at guaranteed money, 50, 60, 70 million. And now, man, that is seriously in jeopardy.
Mark. Right.
Now he's only signed through next year because they took the 5th-year option, which will pay him guaranteed $8 million next year. After that, coming off the injury,
you don't know.
This can play out a number of different ways, man.
Remember, Joe Theismann never played again after that injury, and I watched it the first time. Every time they showed the replay, I was like, I can't watch it.
I knew it was bad because during the actual game, they didn't show the replay.
Right.
Like, when it happened, they didn't show the replay. And I was sitting there with my boy, and I was like, it's bad when they don't show the replay.
Right.
That's when it's like, at first I only saw it like on YouTube and stuff like that. Then a day later, ESPN and other outlets showed it. But on the actual broadcast, they didn't keep.
I mean, look, it was bad. I was like,
I mean, he was crying. So football players don't like to show that emotion.
But
he could have been crying because
it
was bad.
I don't think he was
I was like,
right.
He was like, it's bad, but to your point, he was like, man, I'm in a contract year.
That, man. I was texting people like, he's crying about that loot.
That's the contract year.
Not about that. Here's an interesting twist, right? Okay, the Giants are 0-5. They suck, which is fine. What happens if the Giants wind up with first, second pick in the draft? All the talk all year was how the Jets were tanking and the first pick, and especially this year, there's 3 supposedly highly rated premier quarterbacks coming up. So my question is, as a Giant fan, you know, what is the Giants thinking if they get the first, second pick in this year's draft?
Well, you got to go for a quarterback. I mean,
That's
you know,
that's
Eli.
what I'm getting at. Eli's 37,
Eli's-
38.
But you know,
They need more than
Eli's
quarterback.
skills haven't. Well, yeah. I mean, they need an offensive line and a
No,
running
but
game.
my point is, when you need a quarterback,
Oh, yeah,
and
you gotta-
if you're coming
yeah.
off a 1-2 win season, it might be time for a total rebuild.
No, you got to start
Do you
thinking
take
about.
one if you think one of these guys
Yeah.
is a franchise quarterback?
You got to start thinking about having a replacement for Eli. You know, I don't know if Eli's skills have necessarily deteriorated that much. He was never a running quarterback. He was never the best passer. Like, I think a lot of his success was based on the receivers he had in the system he was in, right? He had Plaxico, he had Manningham, he had people who could go get the ball, Victor Cruz.
He had some mental like after the half success too.
Right.
Like, you know, there's a lot of quarterbacks can't step up to the plate when you're about
Fourth
to lose
quarter.
the game.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I've always given that quality to like when
Right.
he's about to lose the game, he doesn't give up.
He doesn't give up, no.
Yeah.
But his physical skills weren't always like, you know, he got the best arm. He's not like Aaron Rodgers who can, you know, scramble and pick up 15 yards when he needs it. He was just like a great game manager. But it definitely is time to start thinking about, you know, next year or two, who's going to come in and step up to that role. But next Wednesday, we got the NBA season tip-off finally. Man, I can't wait for basketball season.
Wow.
You know, so much has happened. We never talked about Carmelo going to OKC. Is there going to be enough balls to go around for that team? We don't know. What are y'all thinking?
I think OKC has definitely gotten better. I mean, besides Carmelo, obviously they got Paul George on draft night, so they have somewhat of a big three. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. I think it's going to take time for them to
figure
mesh,
out.
etc. But I think come the end of the year, I'm not predicting they're going to beat Golden State because I don't think anyone in the West is going to beat Golden State. But I think OKC is going to be a factor in the playoffs,
Right.
and I look forward to seeing them in the playoffs.
I agree too. I mean, they have Carmelo. I think it adds more weapons as far as shooting goes, but you know, that team has to gel. You know, it's just a lot of egos now. You know how that goes. Just
Right.
because it looks good on paper doesn't mean it's
No doubt.
going to work out. So
No doubt.
it'll be interesting to see how they gel as a team. You know, but I like where the Cavs is going. You know, they're strengthening their bench. Like, for a team to actually beat Golden State, you have to have a strong bench, and they kept their bench. So, you know, and that was the thing I was concerned about at the end of last season was like whether or not they were going to be able to keep Iguodala and like some of their strong Livingston and some of their guys. They kept them.
Yeah.
Well, making it work.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it was
so
interesting
now
because it was-
and now they're clicking, you know, and now KD is doing his second year now, and they were clicking at the end of last year that like the strongest competitor I still think they have is the Cavaliers, and if the Cavaliers has a strong bench, and here's the thing about it, you have a veteran coming on. You have veterans coming on now, so their bench is strong veterans like Wade, and Wade has played with LeBron. We already know that like they got championships under them. It's going to be interesting to see how those guys gel now with those added weapons.
So essentially, we're excited for the season, but we already know it's going to be Cleveland versus Golden State. Part four.
I mean, basically, I don't. Who's beating those squads though?
Nobody.
Like who?
No.
Nobody.
Are
It's
we,
about
are we
to
just
start,
counting
but it's-
the Celtics?
Yeah.
Nah, they out of here.
No.
Yeah, we are. As far as the finals, they're gonna have a good season. You know, they'll be a 2 seed. You know, maybe even a 1 seed, but they're not gonna.
They still rebuilding. They're
They're not gonna beat the Cavs. So sorry to break it to all you fans. The season hasn't started yet, but Cavs Warriors Part 4 coming soon.
Tonight we got Game 5, right?
Yankees Cleveland Game 5. Which after Friday, I mean we haven't talked since then. When they lost that lead, man, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was a wrap.
Yeah.
I thought they were gonna get swept after that, and for them to make it back to Game 5, it's gonna be interesting. I think they got a good shot.
You know, I think the pressure's back on Cleveland, right?
Absolutely.
Like they had that
Absolutely.
game. you know, the Yankees got some pitching and some hitting. You got CC Sabathia pitching today. This is like the perfect stage for him.
He's not scared of this.
He's not scared
at all. At all. He's going to give you everything he's got.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to keep him in the game.
Yeah, and that's all you need. And, you know, they got the strong bullpen. And, you know, I'm just impressed with Aaron Judge. Like, to me, I don't know about his physical skills, but his demeanor just reminds me of Derek Jeter, right? He's a rookie, cool under pressure, comes up with big plays. He had a little slump in the middle of the season, but still came back and hit over 50 home runs.
The moment doesn't look too big
No,
for him.
it doesn't.
You know, even if he's not performing, like he doesn't look scared, he doesn't look intimidated. Came up with a hell of a big
catch.
hit the other night,
And
a
a
catch. That
Yeah.
catch actually was bigger than the hit.
Yeah.
Catch saved probably a 2-run homer, and they won the game 1-0.
Right.
So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. Go Yanks.
So now's the part of the show. I don't even know if we have enough time for this to talk about our president, you know, the White House.
Where do you start? Where do you want to start?
Well, first let's talk about just his staff, right? You got Rex Tillerson calling the president a moron, right? He denies it, of course, but everybody pretty much knows he did, and he didn't really deny it either.
Right.
You got one of the most respected senators saying that the White House is like adult daycare, Bob Corker, and that the president's leading us towards World War III.
Oh yeah, Corker's very outspoken.
Right.
But he's on the front line because he said there's a lot of Republican senators that feel the same way. I wish they would honestly have balls like Corker and McCain to step up and say it. But a lot of them feel the same way, which, you know, the House is in jeopardy.
Right. You got Trump in tweet wars with Jamel Hill that he shouldn't even be worried about her, right?
So insane, man.
I didn't even know he was in a tweet war with Jamel Hill. So I'm like, really? I was like, oh, this guy has so much time on his hands. Wow.
After Charlottesville, she called him a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came out with some tweet about, you know, ESPN and their ratings. And I might have the sequence mixed up. And then his press secretary.
That's his go-to thing, the ratings.
Yeah. His press secretary said that was a fireable offense. And she did this on her personal tweet. She didn't do this on air. And then after this whole fiasco with the NFL, she tweeted again that, you know, the advertisers should start thinking about, like we were talking about before, whether they still support the NFL. So she got suspended. And then he started tweeting again about how ESPN's ratings are dropping, you know, because they had people like her on the air.
And he basically commended them for the suspension, but said she should have been fired from before. It's just insane. And again, for our president of the United States to have the time and the energy and the effort to be doing this, instead of figuring out how to get water and food to Puerto Rico.
And
insane,
figuring out a way of not having World War III.